And welcome to the Go Earn It podcast. I'm your host, Shane Sparks. It is episode number 23. Another big hitter, video game type stats, a phenomenal career. This is Nick Gwiazdowski, four-time All-American, three-time finalist, two-time national champion, four-time conference champion, three of those with the Wolfpack and the ACC, and an eight-time U.S. national team member, a two-time world bronze medalist. Nick, it's great to have you on. First question is, you're pretty happy with that career? You and I were talking about this before we got on air. You've had a remarkable career. Those are stats, those are accolades that most people couldn't dream of.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I was spending some time after the trials. I was thinking about when I cut my grass, and I was like, even though in this sport you're so trained to think about, oh, you want to win. Like obviously, my goal is to win. When I can go back and look and be like, well, 8 national teams over 8 years, 8 straight, and I'm top 3 in all those years, and half of them I was number 1. And I was top 5 in the world 3 times, 2 medals. And then if you can look further at it and be like, there's only probably 2 guys off the top of my head that I've wrestled and I've never beaten. Maybe 3 if we wrestled multiple times. Akgul and what do you call it? The Iranian guy. So like there's guys that I've lost to once, but we've never wrestled a second match. Like those guys I've wrestled multiple times, I've never beaten them. But outside of those 2 guys, like I've split matches with almost everyone in my career. So those are kind of cool things to look at and think about when I kind of step back after this year and put it all into perspective.
Let's go back to the beginning. What is your first wrestling competition memory?
Oh man, I think the first one is actually, I partially remember it. My mom remembers it far better, but we were going to like this little youth tournament or something, and we get in the car, we drive in there, and I didn't bring my wrestling shoes. I was wearing a pair of winter boots. So I don't know if I actually wrestled in like either my socks or the boots or something like that, but yeah, I didn't have wrestling shoes on.
How old were you?
Maybe like 6 or 7. I started in first grade, so I started young around then. And we would stay at the local tournaments, nothing big. 4 or 5 months of the year, I enjoyed it a lot, but outside of that, I didn't start going 6, 8 months and then full time until 6th, 7th grade.
Tell me about Waynesburg, New York, and the influences in that community on your wrestling.
It was tremendous. It still is tremendous. It's a small school. We're Class D. I graduated with 70 kids, 75 kids. We always had a strong wrestling tradition. Teams. We've had multiple individual sectional champions and state place finishers, and those were guys that I looked up to and coming through, and luckily it's a small enough school where you know everybody, and knowing those guys that won states a couple years older than me, it was just a good room to be in. We had a great coach in Joe Benna, who's a Hall of Fame level coach, and it was awesome.
What did you learn, Nick, during that time in your career that was super, super important, something that stuck with you to this time?
Man, a few different things. Probably one on the coaching side of things is like you could be intense and have your practice, but there's got to be some laughs. You got to bring something to the table that makes your guys want to work for you. And that's something I've definitely learned in high school, and laughing and smiling during practice isn't a bad thing. And then on the wrestling side of it is, I would say something that kind of started there was like accomplishing something. So like my 8th grade year, I was on and off as a starter. So I was a backup, and then like my goal was to be the starter at the end of the year. So I was a starter at the end of the year. I was like, oh, this is all this is cool, but like not that cool. And you go to the sectional tournament, you see guys, winning sectionals, and you're like, wow, I want to win the sections. This looks awesome. This is a big arena. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, I win the sectionals. Like, oh, this was cool. Like, no big deal though. Then you go to states, and you're like, ah, winning states seems cool. Then you go accomplish that 2 years later, and then you're like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay. So then you do it again. You're like, oh, well, is what it is. It's cool, but not like as big as you kind of expect it. And that's kind of always been something I've been going with. Like as I accomplish different things, there's obviously some huge things that I've accomplished and I enjoy. But I always wanted kind of like that urge for like more competition or like doing it again or winning the next one, that type of thing. Something that kind of, I don't know, just started then, I think.
You won 2 state titles in high school. Your senior season, you were super dominant, like 50-0, I believe it was. Not a single match went the entire, it went the distance. What's your favorite state tournament memory?
Oh, um, geez. I don't think it was at the state tournament, but it might have been at the states or the Eastern states one year. My coach would be yelling. He wouldn't even really need to coach me at that point. He would just tell me the time because I pinned everyone before the third period. So he would be like, Gwiz, you got 30 seconds. And then I'd drum something up to pin the opponent. But it was stuff like that. Like that was so much fun just because the level of competition I was used to and my skill level versus just the disparity in skill. Like I had a blast hanging out with my friends and going places and doing all those things. And the last thing you are is like, nervous or anxious about a wrestling match. Like I know I'm gonna win this wrestling match. Let's have fun and screw around type stuff.
What was the recruiting process like for you? And ultimately, why did you at that time settle on Binghamton?
Um, I wanted to stay close to home. I was looking at Penn State, Lehigh, and and Binghamton, and I knew Pat through Frank Popolizio, who was my club coach. And I took a visit to Penn State. I took a big visit to Binghamton. It just kind of came down to just I liked the place, and I was getting good scholarship money, and I felt like I could at that time in my career and like just my upbringing, you weren't you weren't mobbed with like RTCs and post college wrestling. Like I didn't even know how those guys do it. Like you see him like what's a Sunkist wrestling club? Like is that like my wrestling club? Like I had no clue how any of that stuff worked or like so just Binghamton was an up and coming program and I was a high priority to um Pat there and I was like it worked out. I had a great scholarship. I was happy with it and I wouldn't change it. One thing I did.
That was 2012. You were a true freshman. You were an All-American, finished 8th. You're a guy, obviously, you just got done talking about, I mean, you're dominating guys in high school. What was that transition like? And what do you recall, Nick, from those first memories of not being the guy, getting beat up a little bit and being used to winning? I'm sure there's a transition there that you got to deal with.
Uh, it wasn't really a transition, to be honest. Like there was never times that I was like, oh, in the dumps, poor me. Like I knew that like that whole freshman year, I wrestled like top 8, like top 5 guys really. And like I was ranked around like 19th, 20, or guys ranked below me. So I never saw that mid to low or mid to high tier competition until the nationals. Like um I wrestled the heavyweight from Oregon State, I think. I wrestled the guy from Arizona State, all guys who were all Americans. I wrestled Alan Gilligaya from Oklahoma State. I wrestled Ryan Flores from American, who was a national finalist. And they all beat me. And I was like, okay, well, these really big guys are just really, really big. Those first two I mentioned were like 285, and I'm like 230 at the time, 240. I was like, those guys are really big, but they're not like kicking my butt. They're just dang big. Um, And then the other guys are like they're top tier, but what's that like 5 through 8 range guy? I didn't wrestle those guys. And then you go to the nationals and everything's shook up, and you're in the constellations, which is anything can happen, and that's where I've wrestled those guys that were ranked 10th, 11th. The guy from Penn State, I beat him, and then I'm an All-American, and then I wrestle Mike McMullen in a close match. He goes on to take third. I lose to Jeremy Johnson for 8th or 7th and 8th. So it's those kind of things that like you don't know where you stand until the end of the year. And that's kind of you try to tell your athletes is like everything's going to go get blown up at the nationals. Just keep wrestling. That guy that kicked your butt in November, December, you're going to have a match with him at Friday night in the arena. It's going to be, 10 o'clock at night, and there's going to be a lot on the line, but you're both worn down. You're on an equal playing field. You throw all the results all year out the window, and you go into the nationals basically. And that's kind of where I learned that, and that was I just kept believing. Like Coach Pat did a good job of just being positive and telling me I'm good, I can beat these guys. I'm like, well, I haven't. There's guys that are way better than me, that are 8 points better than me, 10 points better than me. And then there's guys I beat. But where's that guy that I'm, in a 1-point match with? And I found those guys at the Nationals.
And you talk about that 2012 tournament. You had Tony Nelson, who, of course, you beat the next year. But Tony beat you 8-0. You talk about those guys 8 points better. He was one of them. I'm always so impressed, Nick, and I want you to really expand on this. It's great to win national titles. That's the goal, okay? But when you get on that backside, you lose to Nelson in the first round, you got to come back and win 4 matches straight. You become an All-American taking 8th place. I just think it takes so much courage. That's the word I like to use. It takes so much courage, grit, and guts. You're a true freshman. Would have been really easy to pack it in at that time. What do you remember going back? Hard to believe back in 2012. You lose to Nelson. And what do you remember about putting it all together again and going on that run?
I don't know if I forget or like maybe I didn't realize it would be 4 matches. Like it was just the guys in front of me. Like, okay, this guy in front of me from Edinburgh or West Virginia, wherever, was like, I can beat this guy. You wrestle, you beat him. And next guy, well, I can beat this guy. It wasn't like, all right, we got 4 matches. This guy might drop down. It's like, no, okay, this guy's up next. Oh, I got a match this round. Okay, I'll warm up, get ready. I've never wrestled the guy before. There's no previous results. Oh, this guy wrestled, beat him. Okay, next, who's next? Oh, this guy. All right, well, I've never wrestled him before. He's not wrestled me, and I don't think then I would like. I knew I can be an All-American. I was told I was good enough, but I never the All-Americans I wrestled kicked my ass. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not the national champ. Like I'm not one of those guys that always believe that, oh, I'm in the tournament, I should win it. Like I wasn't at that skill level. Like Zach Ray and Tony Nelson those years, they were out of my skill level. They were far better than I was. They had better tools than me. But I didn't know what the 7th place guy had. So I'm like, maybe the podium's big, 8 guys. Like maybe I could get on there somewhere, the right matchups, this or that. But during the tournament, I as far as I remember, it was just, go wrestle and, oh, this guy lost. All right, well, he's not that good. He didn't wrestle me this year. He didn't kick my butt this year. And the guys that did beat me that year, they fell in different parts of the bracket and lost to someone else. So
the magic of the tournament, right? The magic of that
yeah,
tournament.
and that's all that's completely how things happen in 32-man brackets.
In 2013, you take a red shirt. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. At this time, you follow Pat to NC State. Was the rule at that time if you transferred, you had to take a year?
It was if you didn't get a release. I got a full release, and at that time you just couldn't transfer in conference, and I wasn't going to transfer in conference, so I could have wrestled that year. But the red shirt was just the best move for the team we had there, the transition, the maturity, all that type of stuff.
Was it a hard decision making the move to go with Pat?
Yes and no. Like it was a hard decision because it was far away. it was a hard decision because Pat and Frank Beasley are the only guys I know. But in terms of like staying at Binghamton, I got along. The guys that I thought my future were with were the coaches, and them not being there was an important part of it.
At NC
So
State,
that's where I drew my conclusion from.
okay, so you take that redshirt season in 2013, you come back in 2014. You talked about it before. At that point, early in your career, you just didn't feel like maybe you were the guy because you just weren't good enough. When did you realize you were the guy?
So that redshirt year, 2013, I wrestled probably like 8 opens. I wrestled well. I took third or fourth of the scuffle that year. I won all my other matches, and then wrestling freestyle. That's where that like summer. I went out to I wrestled the U.S. Open. I took 7th at the U.S. Open. I went out to Columbus. I trained with Tervel for a couple weeks on and off. And then I wrestled the trials that they were in Stillwater that year in 2013. And I took 4th at the trials. I beat, and that's the first time I beat Nelson. I wrestled him in 13 trials. And I wrestled him twice. I wrestled him in the championship bracket and then consolation. And I tech falled him once, and this was with the 8-point takedowns or the 8-point tech falls.
Mm-hmm.
Because we only had those rules for a year. So I beat him like 8-0 the first match, and then I beat him the second match, beat someone else, and I ended up losing, I don't know, to either, I think it was Zach for third place that year. And after that, I was like, I can beat these guys. Actually, no, I lost to Nelson during my redshirt year too, at the scuffle. And that's where I realized I can beat these guys. And then going into that next year is like, all right, well, I can actually I can compete with these guys.
Where did you make the biggest gains, Nick, in that time, technically and mentally?
I think a good bit of it was physical, like just not being 19 years old, being 21 years old is a huge difference. And there was technical wrestling. I had a little bit better partners. And just I was hungry. I knew what I was capable of, and I had the right people around me, the right friends, and just encouragement and stuff like that.
What do you remember from winning that title 2014 and specifically that match against Nelson? What do you remember from that experience getting ready to battle? At that time, he's a 2-time reigning national champ?
Yeah, and if he wins that, I think Minnesota wins the title. If he loses, Penn State wins the title. I think I did wrestle him earlier that year. He beat me. He rode me out the entire period.
He was a beast on top. Man, he was tough.
Yeah, he was really good on top. He would get punished in today's rules with top wrestling. He would get called for stalling a lot. Especially the way refs call it nowadays. They want to see pinning combos immediate. But I just prepared. I knew I can take him down. I just, I didn't want to get sprawled down and get ridden out, those type of things. And I was nervous, but I just went out there and wrestled my match, and I was just lucky things came my way, and winning, that was one of the times I could truly say, like, I was like, this is awesome. Like when the fans are on their feet clapping, you have your hands in the air, you just won the nationals on ESPN, like, this is the best. That was really special.
What were the thoughts in your mind as you stood atop the podium and were announced that you were a national champ at heavyweight?
Just like thanking God for what he gave me in my life, like to be in that position. It was special. It was greatly enjoyed. And those type of things I think about, and I tell guys that I coach or other people, like, you can really change, like, this tournament will change your life. If you go there and perform, like, you will have a different outcome of your life. If you're not an idiot and make, decent decisions in your life, being a national champion or even being an All-American will change the trajectory of your life. I think. I think it changes the way people look at you, speak of you, all those type of things.
When you look at your career, Nick, specifically on the college side, I mean, now you're, coaching at Cornell. You have won national titles, 4-time All-American. You've done it all in college. There's probably not much that could be thrown in front of you that you wouldn't have a concept on how to handle it. What are some things you did that separated you? When you look back and reflect, what are a few things you did where it's like, yep, I was doing this, and I know if I didn't do this, I was in trouble? And then if you could, Nick, speak more specifically to some of the disciplines. How disciplined were you?
I was disciplined. Pat runs a disciplined program. I was disciplined with training, with intensity of training, with like that I want to kill you mentality. Like I'm going to do everything I can to score the points. Not giving up. Training hard in things I didn't like doing. And these are things, and at that time, like I would struggle with when we would be doing conditioning or stuff non-wrestling related. I'm like, I don't care if you win the sprints. Like we're not a sprinting team. Like we're a wrestling team. Like I'm still the best wrestler on this team. Like I don't care. Go ahead, win the sprint laps. Go ahead, win the stadiums. Like go win the distance. I don't care. I'm still a better wrestler than you. But then I started to learn like I need to push myself in those aspects, even though I'm still a bottom 5 runner on the team. I need to push myself to know that I'm callous. I'm like hardened over in those type of situations. That even if it's something I don't like to do and I don't think it's important at that time, there's somewhere where I'm going to need to draw something from that. And maybe it just brought my tolerance for uncomfortableness and fight to a higher level, I guess. But a lot of what else kind of motivated me at that time was like I was still at a school hundreds of miles away from where I'm from. I don't know anyone, so my outlook is like, well, people know me if I win the nationals. Like I'm not the most outgoing person. I'm not going to introduce myself to everyone in the class and meet all these people. It's like people will know me if I'm the national champion. Like so that was definitely a great motivator. And our wrestling team wasn't good, so it's not like, we had a lot of fans at this event, but it's like I don't know anyone, but people know me if I'm the national champ. So that was kind of a big piece to it.
When you think back in your career, Nick, was there a time or a moment when there was maybe a fork in the road and you had, something happened where it propelled you to being great, where it could have maybe went the other direction?
I really don't think so. I think um by no means like when I graduated college, I was like, I'm gonna be the national champion. Like I didn't wrestle national champions. I didn't know how good they were. If you look at what I did on paper versus what the guys did it on paper that were at the NCAA, it's like, okay, yeah, I placed third in Fargo in both styles. I went one time and I won Virginia Beach and I won Full Nationals. So I was like, yeah, on paper, I guess I'm comparable to those guys. But it's not like nowadays where kids know like you were in the room training with, oh, I was in the room training with so and so and I can beat that guy. Like it wasn't like that for me. So I don't know, probably the back to your question, probably the biggest like fork in the road kind of my freshman year, or not my freshman year, my sophomore year, the year I was redshirting at NC State. I was not enjoying it. Like practices were hard. Preseason was very hard. We were running or doing stadiums 4 days a week, and I was just like so worn down. I was just like I was on this distance run one day, and I'm like lost. I'm like so far at the back. I'm just like, why am I doing this? Like this sucks. Like this has nothing to do with wrestling. Like I understand what Pat's trying to do with other guys on the team and build this culture around it, but like I don't enjoy this. I like to wrestle, and I get to the point, I'm just like, Pat, like, I don't want to run anymore. Like, if that's, I don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't like I want to quit. It was just like, we need to find something else to do because my body is falling apart doing this. My back hurts, my shins hurt. Like, find something else for me to do. And he's like, no problem, get on the bike, or get on the elliptical. I was like, oh, this is so much better. And I would still push myself on those things, but there was some parts of it that was just like, I'm so worn down. Like, I don't know. I know three people here, it's hot as hell here. Like, training stunk, like, and not bad training, just really hard. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. It wasn't like it was breaking me because it was hard. It was breaking me because it was like, I just had no desire to do it. Those things. Did I like practice? Sure, I like practice. Sure, I like competing. It wasn't those things that was wearing me out. It was the running and the conditioning. I was just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And then we figured it out.
What has Pat Popolizio meant to you?
He's done a lot for me. He's started off as my coach, and now he's a very good friend of mine. I was talking with him this morning. Um, he's a great coach. He's a great leader of guys. He understands how to lead a program, put people in the positions they need to be put into to succeed, and get his guys what they need to be the best they can be. So I'm grateful for the time I spent with him, not just in college, but even after college, even though like he wasn't coaching me, he put the coaches, the people in the training partners, those type of things, gave me the opportunities I needed to succeed at the best of my ability.
Of everything you just mentioned, what's the one thing? What's the biggest singular impact he's had on your life? Maybe it has nothing to do with wrestling. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
I would say when I was in college, just like his ability to motivate, his ability to not just be, a technical coach pointing out X's and O's, but like being someone you want to go like rip your opponent's head off for. Um, and that's what it was in college for me. After college, it's the game's different, so I prepared differently. But in college, where it's such a just more intense fight rather than like the technical aspects of freestyle, like having him in the corner, coaching and yelling like that fired me up.
40 years down the road, when you're 70, what is the one story you'll remember about Pat?
Man. There's a lot of good ones. Probably one of the first ones was when he would be uh, he'd be threatening to replace guys on the team with all these incoming guys he had coming in. Got so many state champs. He'd tell us all the time, and it didn't affect me. It was more for like the guys that were already on the team and weren't kind of had different goals in mind, but he'd always be, talking about the incoming guys, the incoming guys, the incoming guys. And it's just like, dude, shut up. Like, this is what you got. Sorry. But it turns out like those incoming guys, I think it was around that time, like put the team on the podium in 2018. Or maybe it was a little bit earlier, but yeah, there were important parts of it. But he would say that all the time, just like, where are they then? Like, they can't beat me now.
Who in your college career, or even international career, Nick, put you on the spot on this one here a little bit, but who's the most impactful teammate you've ever had?
Impactful teammate. Wow, that's an interesting question. College, I'd probably have to say my friend Bill Cook. He had no business being on a Division I wrestling team, but he was a starter for a year. And he actually came to NC State with me as a team manager and then became a starter. The team was so bad. But he's just been a great friend, still is a friend today. And a roommate throughout my entire college career. And he was a good middle piece from things I would be frustrated on and things Pat would be frustrated on. He'd kind of be the in-between, go-between to get us on the same pages with things, whether it was training or competition or just the way things were going. He's always been great like that.
How about international wise?
International, it could be a slew of guys. I've been lucky to be on teams with some of the greatest wrestlers of all time, you could argue, but it could be any one of those guys, because you could be doing something, you see what they're doing, you learn from them, you spend time around them, you realize, wow, this guy's having the success and I'm doing the same things he is. So it's like I belong in here. Why can't I be doing that? That type of thing. So that's a big thing. And I don't know, like I being at NC State, I didn't have other like guys at my level in my room, but I would go up to Penn State and train often. While I was in North Carolina, and I would stay with David. So I learned a lot of things from David, just kind of seeing how he goes about things, and not just his wrestling ability, but his discipline, his commitment to his trade, those type of things. And when you live with him and his wife for a week at a time, you kind of get to know someone on a personal level, and they're not just the magic man that goes out there and scores all these points. They're much more human than people suspect.
Being at a very high level yourself, what's something when you look at David that just you marvel at the most? Something that's really just difficult that you appreciate because you understand it.
Probably his pace, and his ability to keep scoring points. It's been something I've looked up to and be like, that's tremendous, and you try to mimic it, but just his ability to just find offense after offense after offense. And it's not like a God-given talent that like he just has. It's like, wow, like he's got it. Like his skills are learned skills. He's always been a winner, but like those are skills that you learn and you perfect. So probably that, his work ethic and those kind of things to get to that level.
Thoughts on him going to Oklahoma State?
I think it's awesome. I think if there's a international guy for it at that level, he is, just between his passion for coaching, which he's shown with his club. Like I've been around him when he started the club, and I was like, I'm gonna start a wrestling club, like, and then it grows into what it has been, and then on top of the businesses he owns, on top of his own success, on top of being around the coaches he's been around, so it's like this guy gets it. He's got a passion for coaching. Yeah, it's at a high school level, but yeah, there's some of the best recruits in the country he's coached, and yeah, he's owns businesses. Sure, it's not college coaching, but people always say the head coach is a CEO. David's probably done plenty of hiring and firing and making decisions about his own businesses. So I think leading a program, yeah, it'll be different, but I think he's got a skill set for it.
Watching you over the years, Nick, very easy to see the progression on the mat, but it's hard to see somebody's mental progression, what they have going on between the ears. What are the biggest adjustments you made? I'm always fascinated by the mental stuff. I think it's just fascinating. What are some of the things you did over the years that paid the biggest dividends mentally?
Honestly, early in my career, nothing. I would read a couple books here and there. Excuse me, I gotta blow my nose.
That's all right.
Early in my career, nothing, and then I had a terrible World Championships in 2019. I thought I was in a good spot in the bracket. Training was good, and I just melted against this Iranian guy, and I like walked up the mat. I thought I was having a heart attack. Like I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like I'm in shape. I don't get that tired. Like what the hell happened? and then I met with a sports psychologist and started working on some things, and now it's better. Like now you realize when you talk to a professional, you realize you're not the only one that has these thoughts. Negativity is the first thing that goes in your head. Like this is the first thing that shows up. Negative, can't do it, tough, can't do it, hard. But then you'd be like, okay, I'm not the only one that thinks like this. They show up in everyone's mind. No one goes out there like, oh, this is going to be easy. Like I've done this a million times. But really, I need to remind myself of those things. So it's probably after those things, after that year, I've worked on those things, and um, it's probably kept me around and relevant for a longer time, rather than just kind of having a terrible performance and then having all those questions still floating around my head, meeting someone and sitting down and getting answers to those questions.
What specifically, Nick? Like, what are a couple of specific things that you really lasered in on?
You like things that were going through my head, or like solutions?
Both.
This
Love to hear both of them.
things going through your head is like, oh, this guy's good in this position. He's good in this position. Oh, he's beaten me before. He's big. He's beaten this guy who I've never beaten. Look, he just tired this guy out. Like all normal negative thoughts that can go through your head. And then I start to zero in onto working on things. It's like I'm trained for this. This is all I do. Everything I do revolves around this. I'm trained to the level of automatic execution. There's nothing I'm gonna get into position wise that I'm like, I got no clue what to do here. I don't know what to do here. Like I know what to do in every position I wrestle. And then just exercises to kind of subside and put away those thoughts that show up in your head, to kind of be like, yes, your thought, I'm recognizing you now, I'm putting you away. You're not the one I'm going to dwell on. Verbally saying something takes all your thought waves to your words rather than with whatever's floating around your head. That makes sense. So when you say something, the only thing going through your head is what's coming out of your mouth. You're not thinking about like, oh, this guy pinned me last time. I'm saying, no, I'm going to pin him this time. And then it becomes a little more real. At least that's how it works for me.
Okay. What's the most nervous you've ever been for a competition?
I apologize.
No, that's all right.
Most nervous. I struggled last couple of years, really since 2019, with sleeping at events. Normal tournaments, I'll sleep maybe 2 to 4 hours. I don't know what it is. And part of it's probably jet lag and overseas travel, and part of it is you got thoughts racing through your head and whatnot. But that was always challenging, struggling to sleep. And also, in terms of nervousness, like you get a little nervous, but then once I either wrestle or once I get in the tunnel and you're there in your singlet, t-shirt on, t-shirt off, like it's like I'm trained for this. This is what I do. I've done this hundreds of times. I've done it against everybody on every stage. What's there to be nervous about? I've won, I've lost. Like it's not like you're gonna go out there and die if you lose. Like the other guy's gonna get his hand raised, people are gonna clap, you're gonna walk off, and next match goes. Like so yeah, that's kind of all put away.
In 2015, you beat Mike McMullen. I mean, that weight class in 2015 was stacked. I mean, that was a great weight class at heavyweight. You beat McMullen, win the national title, your second one.
I don't know.
Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong, Shane.
Hang tight here. Don't tell me. I got to get this. Hang tight. Hang tight. No, I'm wrong. I got it, Nick. I got it. Here's what just happened, Nick. I took a shot. I thought you were off balance. I took a shot, but quick shot recovery here, and now I'm coming right back again. You beat Adam Kuhn. Yes. Kuhn. That's who you beat from Michigan.
Kuhn beat McMullen in the semis.
Because they had that wild scramble, if I remember right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting my Big Ten guys mixed up a little bit.
Yeah, so 2015, I think 2015.
You were
Dude,
undefeated.
14 or 15. I think it was 15. I wrestled McMullen. It was actually funny. I wrestled him in an empty gymnasium at Duke University at a tri-duel. We went to overtime. Great match, probably not recorded anywhere.
Really?
And he was ranked like 2 at the time. I was ranked like 4. This might have been at 14, actually. I take that
Okay.
back. It might have been at 14. Maybe, I don't know, one of those 2 years. But then I lost to Kuhn the beginning of my 14 year, because that was his freshman year. That's when he went on that big tear up through nationals and then went 0-2.
Yep. Yep.
So I was the 1 seed. He was the 8 seed at Cliff Keen. I shot probably 35 times on him. And he takes 1 shot in overtime, wins. Yeah, so wrestling him in 2015. What was your question again?
I was just kind of talking about that run in 2015. I mean, you were undefeated.
Yeah, so that
It was a
2015,
stacked weight class.
it was good. Big Ten was super deep.
It was super deep. I mean, that year, if I remember right, Nick, you had in the Big Ten, you had McMullen, Kuhn, Medbury was maybe at Wisconsin at that point. You had, I mean, McClure from Michigan State was good. Shelfon from Indiana was good. I think you beat him in the semis, I think. I mean,
I beat him at 14 in the semis.
Okay. But I mean, just a
Telford
bunch
was
of
around
really
there
good
too.
guys.
Telford was, and so was Spencer Myers from Maryland.
Yes.
They were very deep. I think I was the only non-Big Ten guy on the podium, actually.
And you know that was killing me, Nick. That was killing me. Full transparency, I can promise I wasn't rooting for you that night.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that was a super stacked year. And I've started to learn after my first time wrestling nationals, like, you don't have to wrestle all of them. In reality, you probably wrestle 2 really good guys or 3 really good guys. Either quarterfinals if you're, in that like lower seed, or semifinals. And my junior year when I wrestled Kuhn, I was the 1 seed, I believe. So I think an 8 seed might have been, I'm not sure, but it was a match that I was like, okay, well, this guy's good. And I'm not saying guys aren't good, but it's not like, you guys you wrestle in the semis, that can be a potential finals match. Those guys are really good. So that was, Kuhn was probably the only guy that I didn't want to wrestle, just because the last time he wrestled, he beat me. And I knew it was all upper body, and he just sprawled on all my shots, even though this is 2 years ago. Or maybe I think it was just 1 year ago. But that's who we ended up having in the finals, and I scored a couple of easy takedowns early. And I ended up winning the match by 1 point. And it was so bizarre how it all happens, which shows the problems with scoring then, where I scored 3 takedowns, he scored 1, and I won by 1 point. I essentially had to get an escape to win the match. I believe I was down or tied like 6-6, and there was like maybe 40 seconds left or something, and I get out. But it's like, how does a match where I score 3 takedowns and I win by 1 point?
Well, you were so good on your feet. I mean, you were just
well, yeah, but that goes to show the problems with the scoring then. It makes, for guys like you, it makes a lot of close matches, right? You love cheering on a close match. I do too when I'm sitting in the stands. But if I'm out there wrestling, I'm like, how the hell did I win by 1? I scored 3 points. I did all the work in this match. There wasn't a position I didn't score in, and I win by 1 point. Like, what the heck? But no, he was good. But I spent a lot of time, clearing out of those underhooks, getting to my feet on shots, and just, again, a great thrill winning it. But it was awesome.
What separates good from great?
Probably just a different level of commitment and willingness to do everything. Like, and when I mean everything, I mean the summer work, the in-season work, the discipline work, the skip the vacation, the skip the funeral, the skip the cousin's birthday party. Like there's a different level of it. And I think part of it kind of depends, like when opportunity knocks, what are you doing? Do you pick up the phone? Do you answer the door? Or do you send it to voicemail? Because as an athlete, I've done it, and as a coach, I see it. It's like, hey, you want to come and work out? Yep, okay, I'm there. Rather than, I can't make it. I'm gonna be out of town. Can we do this time? Can we go at 11 instead of 9? I like to sleep in, those type of things. And they're not bad things. I just the best guys, I don't think, or the truly the great guys, there's like 3 excuses they can use, that are actually like, hey, I'm actually going to skip this because this. It's consistency around the rooms. It's not, oh, I can't go to U23s. We have a family vacation. Like, buddy, you're fucking 22 years old. Like, you ain't going on family vacations. Like, I don't get it. Okay, so you want vacation more than getting better at wrestling? That's fine. Just that is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. 100%, Nick. It's kind of like, it's like anything in life. I mean, I do it with myself. I actually had like a little self-talk in the mirror this morning about some things with me. Like, I literally look myself in the mirror. I'm like, Shane, don't say this stuff because you're not doing it. Like, drop it. Like, don't tell me you want to win a national championship if you're not doing the work. Like, save it because you look like an idiot. You look dumb.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've kind of figured out with my own um in my own competition of like, depending on the time of year, depending on what the competition was, all that type of stuff coming up, like you're zeroed in. Like that's the only thing that matters. If you want to go accomplish what you accomplished last year, you're going to do the same stuff and more. And then to do it again, you're going to do the same stuff and more. And as you get older, it becomes harder to do, and you kind of have to figure out what are those things and where you're going to add that different dimension. But when you're in college, it's really as simple as just wrestle year round, stay in shape year round. Take advantage of opportunities to wrestle with better guys, that type of stuff.
Where does your mind go 8 years later from that 2016 national final with Snyder? When you think about that match, what do you think about?
Should have scored the scramble and won.
What a great match that was, though. I mean, that was a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah, I've actually never watched it. I should watch it sometime. That's a perfect example, right? Like you find out he's coming back New Year's. Okay. You talk to your coach, you're like, well, he's the Olympic champion. It's a totally different rule set. And it's a weight class below you. You got to realize like you're good enough to wrestle at that tournament too. And at that time, like I won the last 2 nationals, like I'm 4th in the US at heavyweight. I'm good, and realizing that. And we did a lot of preparation work. And I've actually like, no, because I didn't wrestle with him yet. I think I wrestled with him during the summer or something when he was at Ohio State. But nonetheless, like, okay, yep, he's good. These are the things we got to do. He's going to be in shape. He's going to attack. Not a great scrambler. How can we out scramble him? How can we make a difference on the mat? And those are things I worked on. I spent a lot of time in my senior year getting an extra work, getting an extra conditioning, getting an extra stance of motion, because we're going to be in a stance for 8 minutes. So sometimes hearing those challenges brought a different level of preparation.
Obviously, you guys world team members, national team members. You guys ever talk about that match? You ever come up?
No, I don't think so. I think we've both moved on to other things. But but it was a good match. A lot of people enjoyed it in MSG. I mainly just remember like walking out of there, taking my shoes off, and going to the hotel with my buddy and be like, "Oh, it's over." And I can handle things like that, even though they are heartbreaking, when I know I've done everything to put myself in that position. Like I prepared well, I was in shape, I was dieting right, I was sleeping, I was like all those things in line. This Olympic trials, all the things in line. Last Olympic trials, all the things in line. Like I don't think I don't know. I don't think there's been an event, maybe one event in the last couple 8 years, 9 years, 10 years that I'm like, oh, I wasn't in shape. I actually should not have gone here. Um, but for the most part, it's like if I compete, I know my effort's going to be there. I've never lacked effort in wrestling, or um I know everything is in line to do well. If I don't do well, it comes down to decision making on the mat or things I need to, get better on here or there. It's not like I'm going to go compete with a, half-ass training camp. Like, no, I'm putting my ducks in line. I'm in for it.
Couple more for you, Nick. This has been great. I want to ask you, and maybe it's the same match, maybe it's not. What match did you learn the most from? And what match in your career do you wish you could get back?
Um, Learn the most from I don't really know. I'm not sure. That's a tough one. But going back to the last question and getting things back, kind of combine those two, it comes around. It would probably, for me, it would be the 2022 Final X. Coming off my first college coaching season, um, I was doing all the things I would always do. Um, and there was something I was missing. And I looking back, clearly it was missing. But I wasn't like looking for the thing that I'm missing. I was like, oh no, I feel good, practice over, done. But then when I go compete against Zilmer there, um, even though getting injured in the first match, like it was glaring in the second match, was that my conditioning wasn't where it needed to be. And that's something where that's me full blame. I knew, looking back on it, it's like, wow, how did I not, like, I didn't push myself in conditioning as far as I needed to be pushed, which isn't my coach's fault. I'm 29 years old. Like I know I know where I need to be. So that's probably it.
Go Earn It podcast. Ask this question to everybody I have on. What's a moment in your career? It could be high school, college. It could have been 5 years ago. When's a time in your wrestling career that you had to go earn it? You had to find something out about yourself that maybe you didn't know you had.
2018 World Championships. I was the 1 seed. I beat the Mongolian in the first match. I wrestled a guy from China who I've beaten before. He ends up head pinching me. In the process of head pinching me, I get a high ankle sprain. My leg's like starting to burn like during the match. I end up losing the match. I'm like walking off. I'm like, my leg is burning. Like, I don't know if it's broken. What's wrong with it? Like, it's burning. It's not comfortable. Like, and that was when the 2-day tournament, so the repechage the next day. And I think I have 3 matches because I was quarterfinal, I losing. So then I had semi and then third. So 2 matches. And I get back to the hotel and I'm like, this thing hurts. Like I could barely get it into the bathtub. I couldn't have a blanket over it. Like I'm literally laying in bed, like almost in tears, the amount of pain. We're like, we'll shoot it up tomorrow morning. We'll give it a try. We'll see where it goes. And I'm like, I'm not even thinking about uh defaulting. Like I want to wrestle because I know the guys that can wrestle tomorrow, like I should beat them. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't move. Like walking straight is difficult, let alone, cutting my feet on a mat and that weight transition on my leg. So thankfully a doctor shot me up with some drugs and I was able to get out there, and I think I shot one takedown in those two matches, and I was able to score and um, wrestle well enough to win the bronze. But that was definitely one time that I was like, this sucks. Like, this is not good. This is kind of, bite down and go do it. And also, I was in a position where I was like, I had the way they drew the bracket, like they see the top four, and I was in a perfect spot. Like the Georgian and the Turk were on the bottom side. I think the Iranian was too. So like it couldn't have gone better for me. And unfortunately, I got hurt. But unfortunately, I got head pinched, not hurt, head pinched, and then hurt.
And then you came back to win your second world bronze.
Yeah.
Looking at everything you've done, Nick, and you've done a ton of stuff. I marvel at how hard it is to be. And again, you guys are all so good. It's like, oh, one-time All-American, like big deal. Where most normal people like me, it's like one-time All-American, you got to be really damn good to be a one-time All-American.
Well, you're in the business, Shane. You're around these things. You say to other fans like, "Oh, All-American," and these are 90% of the people sitting in that arena. They're like, "Oh, only one-time All-American." Like, dude, you're sitting in the stands. Like, shut your mouth. Like, you can't make weight. Like, it's way more difficult than people
So
think
hard.
of it.
So hard.
It's very hard, and even people say like, "Oh no, it's hard." Like, just recognize it's not easy what guys go and do, and that's really athletes of
Sure.
any position. But I'll speak to wrestling because I know wrestling, but that's hard.
With everything you've done, Nick, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of overall? And what's your one accolade that, for whatever reason, stands atop the rest?
Um, Most proud of, I don't know, maybe my college career, maybe 4 world teams, uh, my 2 world medals, being part of that 2017 team that won the world championships. I don't think what did we win it last year?
Yeah.
21 and 22.
Yep.
But there was no Russia in either.
It all runs together a little bit because I just did something with Bill Zadek, I think, and I apologize if I'm wrong in this. I think Bill's won 4. Has he won 4? Is it? I mean, the one that was 2017 was so big because they hadn't won it since like mid-90s. It comes down to Snyder and Sadulayev, but as you mentioned, you needed everybody. James Green was silver that year. Gilman, I believe, was silver. You were bronze. Like, you needed everybody. I mean, obviously, Snyder came down to that and it climaxed with that final match, but that was huge. I mean, I remember 2017 in Paris, and then it's hard to it all just kind of runs together.
21, we were in Norway. I don't think we won. 22, they won, but there was no Russia.
Okay. And then
And
last year,
did they win last year?
I'm 95% sure they won it last year.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that 2017 squad.
But I wouldn't put my life on it.
The 2017 team, my college career, I don't know. They're fun things to look back on, but it's tough to rank them. They were all special at special times.
Finish this sentence, Nick. I believe.
I don't know, man. I believe in what? Like, I believe that wrestling has the ability to change people's lives for a multitude of factors, but probably the biggest one that I think is like at least at the level I'm at, where if you're competing at this level, if your name is being mentioned at this level, then you're relevant in any field. Like, you can learn different skill sets, but your intangibles of working hard, discipline, timeliness, communication, those type of things, they're at a level of like, yeah, I can pick up something new. Like, yeah, am I not good at math, and learning accounting would be difficult because I don't have good math skills? Sure. But like, I think your ability to be elite at other things translates well.
Final question I have for you is because I'm interested in this with you. If you could make a cross-country trip across the country, Nick, it's you and 3 people, dead or alive, that you've never met. Who's Nick Gwiazdowski taking on the trip?
That I've never met?
That
I don't
you've
know.
never met. Dead or alive, you've never met. I'm giving you 3 people. Who's making the trip?
Jeez. Um, I don't have an answer. I've done plenty of long road trips from North Carolina, New York with Sam and Bill. I would, if they were living, like they're still living, like if I could choose those two, I'd probably do that. Like
Who's that?
my friend Bill and my teammate Sam. So 2 teammates from NC State. We would drive from North Carolina, New York. We're all from New York, so we would hop in the car for 9-10 hours and we'd have a blast. So probably those 2 guys, to be honest.
Good deal. Good deal. Nick, what do you do outside of wrestling? What do you do? Like, what are you most passionate about other than wrestling?
Um, right now, hmm, I enjoy real estate. I have 4 rental homes that I like to see do
Really?
well. I'm fairly handy around the house with fixing things. We're actually gonna re-roof the house here next month, so kind of been studying up and learning that to, make sure that works out. Um, I have 2 dogs I love tremendously that I like hanging out with and spending time with them. Um, and then that's kind of it. I like doing things with my wife. We're gonna be parents in September, which is exciting. So,
Awesome.
uh,
Congratulations. You know what
thank
you're
you.
having?
No, we're just gonna find out.
That's the Nick, I'm
Go
telling
for
you
the
what,
excitement.
like I got 4 kids, and somebody told me once, and I agree 100%. And I'm a big baseball fan. They said, when you don't know, it's like the 7th game of the World Series every day for, like leading up to it. I mean, that's super exciting that I love that you don't know. Like,
Yeah, I've never looked at like, oh, I want a boy or I want a girl. Like I just like, let's see what I get. Like I've done it
sure.
plenty of times at restaurants when I'll be like, all right, either the burger or the chicken sandwich you choose, just don't tell me. Just send one out. Like, hey, God, just send one out. Like, as long as it's good. Like, that's what all I want. Not like, oh, I want a son, I want a daughter. Like,
You'll
I
see
don't
what
know.
you get.
There's only 2 options. I'll take whatever you give me. So I'll be
Oh,
grateful
that's
for it.
awesome. Well, congratulations on that. How do
Yeah.
you how long you want to compete? You've been at this game.
Uh, we're thinking that I've been taking a break since trials. It might be the end, it might not be. Kind of, it's a different chapter of my life now. I'm 31. Um, so feeling things out. This was my last year at Cornell, so I'm not going to be coaching anymore. Um, and my wife's got to go back to her job in North Carolina, so we're going to move back to North Carolina. But I'm kind of feeling things out, but I don't know if I'll be competing. I might take an extended break, and if I want to do it in a couple months and get back to it. But body wise, like body feels good. Like it's not like I'm hurt, those type of things, um and I can still win matches. Um, but it
Well,
gets
in
harder as you get
wrestling,
older.
Nick, as you all know, if you're not, a world medalist, you should hang it up because you're not any good anymore.
There's a lot of people that look at it like that. Um, but it's really hard to maintain that level.
I can't imagine. I
You
cannot
know,
imagine. I mean, you look at some of these guys, Nick. I mean, in the last, couple of months, been some really, really good wrestlers that have walked away. You're 3, 4 years older than those guys.
yeah.
I think, Burroughs, I think, is 35. Obviously, Don Bradley, he walked away. What he's been able to do is just miraculous to me. But you've been around a long time and still having success.
Yeah. And that means a lot to me. And something I never wanted to do was go out as the guy someone beats to become. I don't want to be making guys, essentially. Like, oh, I beat Gwiz, now I'm legit. Like, no, I don't want to be
You don't
going
want to
over
be
the.
on the poster.
Yeah, I don't want to be posterized. Like, I want people to be like, oh, him? Yeah, he was national team when he started, national team when he ended. You know, and thankfully at my weight class, like there's some pretty good guys, and I don't want to be that, get knocked off by the new guy every year. I'd rather still be, thankfully this year beating the new guys. So that's part of it, and getting into shape, maintaining that shape, checking all the boxes, like I said, I need to do. It becomes harder when you become older because it just becomes different things you want to do. You have different kind of goals. You kind of get, I don't want to say bored, but you get interested in different things. And that's me personally. I can't speak to what other guys do, but you hear what they say. Like, there's a reason why they only wrestle twice a year, because it takes a long time to get in shape, get zeroed in, get timing down, get weight in check, all that type of stuff. They're not easy things to do. And a lot of it comes from up here. People are like, oh, he should stick around, just wrestle the 79, 92 trials. Like, you think he's just putting his shoes on and going doing it. Like, there's a lot of damn preparation that goes into that. The body's probably only 40%, 30%. The other comes from up top. And like, if you're not, all in it, and when you're 30 plus, like 7 months is a long time. 8 months is a long time till the next, oh, we'll just take a little break and get back in shape. Like, it ain't like that when you're at this level. It may look like it from your seat in the stands, but on the ground, like it is not that easy. It may look easy, but it is not easy.
So you're going back to North Carolina. Are you going to continue coaching someplace?
No coaching for me.
Okay.
No coaching for me. I'll find something else to do. My wife's got a job. She'll work. We'll have a baby for a little bit.
So coaching, is this it for you, Nick? You don't see that in your future at all?
Probably not.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. It's just there's just some other things I want to do. So let me go do my other things, and then if I fail at those, I'll look at coaching again. But like I said, like there's just some other things I want to dabble in and try to figure out and prove, like, at least to myself, like I'm more than just a wrestler.
Like, what do you want to be able to do? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? What are a couple of boxes you want to check in the next decade?
I'd like to get to home building, contracting, general contracting, developing, that type of stuff. I don't have a college degree in any of it. I have a friend that I've learned from some things that I want to, spend more time and learn more. And I think I could kind of fit what I aspire to do in terms of freedom, both time-wise and financially, and support a family and do those type of things.
Nick, this has been awesome. This has been really good. I see you in passing a lot. I just have great respect for what you've done. I mean, your accolades speak for itself, but you're a cool guy. You did not disappoint.
Yeah.
You got.
I appreciate that. A lot of times at tournaments, I am very like wired into what I'm there for. If it's my own tournament, I'm wired into that. Like, that's my focus. If it's a college tournament, yeah, I'm more open on things, but we're running on a schedule. Let's get this done, that done.
Yeah, you're working.
Yes, and that's exactly it. You are working. As fun as it is, you are working. And then people see me at tournaments, they're like, oh, he's quiet or this, that. It's because I'm doing stuff. But if you see me at the bar afterwards, I'm a bit different. If I get to know you, it's a bit different. So,
well, we'll have to do that sometime. But thanks again, Nick, and congratulations. Excited for you and the wife. I'll be paying attention to see how that shakes out in September. And I'll tell you what, the biggest, my takeaway, Nick, some of this stuff, I mean, the wrestling conversation is awesome. Okay. But the next time I go to eat, I'm going to tell the waiter or waitress, I'm going to say, listen, here's 4 things. I'll go with this, or that. You pick one.
And pick one, don't tell me. Because then they're going to be like, well, do you like spicy? Or like,
oh, yeah. It's like, no.
Choice, just come back with something good.
That's awesome. Nick, thank you so much.
All right, Shane, have a good one.
You too. Take care.